The email arrived like any other booking inquiry, standard business correspondence, landing in the inbox of Camelot Castle Hotel, a luxury cliff-top property in Tintagel, Cornwall, the legendary birthplace of King Arthur. But this wasn't about afternoon tea or wedding packages. This was about transforming a piece of British heritage into something else entirely. John Mappin, the hotel's owner and descendant of the famous Mappin and Webb jewelry dynasty, recalls the moment his manager showed him the message. His first reaction? Laughter. "I thought it was a joke," he says. But it wasn't. The email was from a company representing the Home Office, with an offer that would change everything. They wanted to fill his entire hotel with migrants, every room, for a year, maybe longer. Let me paint a picture of what we're talking about here. Camelot Castle isn't your average travel lodge. This is a property where Winston Churchill once stayed, where Hollywood legends like Ava Gardner and Laurence Olivier walked the halls. The website promises guests a Downton Abbey experience for every man. Rooms go for over £250 a night, with sweeping views of the Atlantic Ocean and the rugged Cornish coastline. Now imagine transforming that into emergency accommodation. Every suite, every historic room, all of it. The financial offer was extraordinary. We're talking about guaranteed income for 50 rooms, potentially worth millions over the contract period. For any struggling hotelier in post-pandemic Britain, this would be tempting. Guaranteed government money, no marketing costs, no seasonal fluctuations, just steady, reliable income while the tourism industry remained unpredictable. But here's where it gets interesting. John Mappin said no. Not quietly, not with a polite decline. He went public, posting the offer on social media and turning what could have been a private business decision into a national controversy. And that's when the real story began. Let's talk numbers, because this is where things get uncomfortable for a lot of people. The UK government has been spending astronomical sums on migrant accommodation. We're talking about contracts with hundreds of millions of pounds going to hotel chains and property companies across the country. The Home Office budget for asylum accommodation has exploded in recent years. For context, reports suggest the government has been spending around £6 million per day housing asylum seekers in hotels. That's over £2 billion annually. Individual hotels have been receiving anywhere from £100 to £150 per person per night, which adds up fast when you're filling entire properties for months or years at a time. So, when Mappin's hotel received this offer, he wasn't just looking at a business transaction, he was looking at becoming part of a massive, controversial system that's dividing communities across Britain. And he had to make a choice that went beyond profit margins. His decision to refuse and publicize the offer sparked immediate reaction. Supporters praised him for protecting the local community and preserving the hotel's heritage. Critics accused him of heartlessness and using vulnerable people as political pawns. The comment sections exploded. The culture war had found its latest battlefield. Here's the part that makes this story more complex than either side wants to admit. When hotels get converted into migrant accommodation, communities change overnight. Not gradually, not with consultation, just suddenly. Dozens or hundreds of people arrive in small towns that weren't prepared for it. Cornwall, where Camelot Castle sits, has seen multiple hotels taken over for this purpose. Locals have reported everything from increased strain on GP surgeries to concerns about young men with nothing to do gathered in town centres. Are these concerns always fair? No. Are they sometimes exaggerated or rooted in prejudice? Absolutely. But are they also sometimes legitimate worries about infrastructure and resources? That's the uncomfortable question nobody wants to answer honestly. The flip side is equally important. We're talking about real people, often fleeing genuine danger, stuck in limbo. The asylum system is broken. People wait years for decisions. They're not allowed to work. They're housed in hotels with nothing to do, which creates its own problems. It's dehumanizing for them and difficult for communities. Nobody wins. But Mappin's decision opened up another angle that's been quietly bubbling under the surface: the profit motive. Companies are making serious money from this crisis. Private contractors, hotel chains, property owners. The asylum accommodation industry is booming while refugees live in uncertainty and communities feel blindsided. Mappin has been particularly vocal about preserving the cultural heritage of Camelot Castle. He's invested millions into the property, maintaining it as a luxury destination that celebrates Arthurian legend and British history. His argument is straightforward. Once you convert a heritage property into institutional accommodation, you've lost something irreplaceable. Is this elitism? Some would say yes. A luxury hotel refusing to help people in need because it might tarnish the brand seems pretty clear-cut to critics. But Mappin and his supporters would counter that Britain has plenty of accommodation options that don't involve sacrificing historic properties. Empty office buildings, disused barracks, purpose-built facilities that could actually be designed for asylum seekers' needs. The question becomes, should private business owners have the right to refuse government contracts based on their values? Or does crisis demand that everyone chip in, heritage be damned? What really amplified this story was the timing. Britain has been locked in increasingly bitter debates about immigration for years. The Rwanda plan, small boat crossings, backlog numbers. Every new story becomes ammunition for one side or the other. When Mappin went public with his refusal, he knew exactly what he was doing. This wasn't just about protecting his business, this was a political statement. He positioned himself as someone standing up to government policy he disagreed with, using his private property rights to make a point. And it worked. The story spread rapidly through social media and alternative news outlets. People who've never heard of Tintagel suddenly had opinions about Camelot Castle Hotel. Mappin became a folk hero to some, a villain to others. But here's the really provocative question. Was he right? If you believe the current asylum system is unsustainable, then you might see Mappin's refusal as principled resistance. If you believe Britain has a moral obligation to house people seeking safety, then you might see it as cruel indifference. Neither side is entirely wrong, which is why this story refuses to die. What the Camelot Castle story really exposes is how broken the entire system has become. We've ended up with a situation where the government is desperately booking up hotels at enormous expense, private companies are profiting handsomely, asylum seekers are stuck in limbo, and communities feel they have no say in what happens to them. Nobody designed this system. It evolved through crisis management, political paralysis, and perverse incentives. And now we're stuck with it, watching individual moments like Mappin's refusal become flashpoints in a much larger conflict that nobody seems to be able to resolve. The rational take isn't that Mappin is a hero or a villain. It's that we've created a situation where a hotel owner turning down millions of pounds becomes a national news story because we've completely failed to develop a coherent, humane approach to asylum and immigration. So, what happened to Camelot Castle Hotel? It's still operating as a luxury destination. John Mappin still owns it, and the migrants who might have been housed there, they're somewhere else, in some other hotel, in some other community that probably wasn't consulted either. The system grinds on, the debates rage on, and the next offer is probably already in someone's inbox.